This podcast is brought to you by Reynolds and Reynolds, the industry leader in automotive technology. Learn how Spark AI, Reynolds' unified AI data layer, can help you unlock your full potential by visiting rey.com/spark-AI. That's REY.com/spark-AI.
Welcome to Daily Drive for Tuesday, January 27th, 2026. I'm Kellen Walker in Las Vegas. Today on the show, Trump raises tariffs on South Korean vehicles to 25%. GM widened its fourth quarter loss but raised 2026 guidance. Ford and GM just cleared a major banking hurdle. Plus, Ancor CEO Jose Flores explains why automakers are bleeding profit by treating data as a back-office compliance thing.
LiDAR will do its job, will tell you where things are, but are you making informed, smart decisions? Are you harvesting the data?
Let's run through all the news you need to know to keep up in the auto industry. President Trump is raising tariffs on South Korean vehicles to 25%, up from 15%, putting Hyundai and Kia at a disadvantage. Trump says South Korea's parliament hasn't approved last summer's trade deal, so he's bumping duties on autos and other goods to the higher rate. That gives Japanese automakers, who face just 15% tariffs, a new edge over their Korean rivals. The move also affects GM, which imports the Chevy Trax and Buick crossovers from South Korea. Seoul is now sending its trade and industry ministers to Washington to implement the deal. South Korea's parliament says it'll take up the legislation next month. Speaking of GM, the United States' largest automaker widened its fourth quarter net loss to $3.3 billion. That's after taking more than $7 billion in charges, mostly tied to scaling back EV production. But despite the red ink, GM raised its 2026 guidance. The automaker projects net income of $10.3 to $11.7 billion and expects to cut EV losses by more than $1 billion this year. CEO Mary Barra called 2025 exceptional amid shifting trade and tax policy. GM's also boosting its dividend 20% and buying back $6 billion in shares. The company anticipates higher tariff costs in 2026, between $3 and $4 billion. We'll have more on this story in a minute with our own Lindsay Van Hully. And GM and Ford just cleared a major banking hurdle. After years of waiting, the FDIC approved deposit insurance for their industrial banks, Ford Credit Bank and GM Financial Bank. Why does this matter? The answer is lower funding costs. FDIC-insured deposits are cheaper than what captive finance companies typically pay to raise money. Ford plans to buy auto loans from dealerships and finance EV infrastructure. GM will mostly buy loans from GM Financial. Both automakers have a year to launch. They need to maintain hefty capital reserves and must keep their bank boards independent. BMW and Toyota already operate industrial banks. Stellantis and Nissan have applications pending. And those are today's headlines. Joining me now to discuss GM's fourth quarter results is our own Lindsay Van Hully, who covers General Motors for Automotive News. Lindsay, welcome back to Daily Drive.
Hi, Kel. Happy to be here.
So, Lindsay, GM took over $7 billion in charges but raised its 2026 guidance. Walk us through how GM can be optimistic about this year despite the massive write-downs.
So the charges that they took in the fourth quarter are mostly related to scaling back EV production. There were some charges related to ongoing restructuring in China. Those really have an impact on net income. So in this case, that contributed to a net loss in the fourth quarter of $3.3 billion. But when you look at their earnings from an adjusted basis, before interest and taxes, that was actually up 13% to about $2.8 billion. And, for the year, when you look at that adjusted pre-tax earnings, it was actually near the high end of their guidance for the year. And so, they look at this really as underlying strength in their core automotive business. Pricing is remaining strong. They've kept inventory pretty disciplined as far as, trying to match output to demand so that they don't have a lot of inventory sitting there that then requires a lot of incentives to move. And they see more of the same into 2026. They're forecasting a more profitable year. They have raised their guidance for net income and for their adjusted EBIT in 2026. And that's even with, tariff costs that continue, looking at ways that they can offset that. They're expecting to be able to improve their EV losses by about $1 billion in 2026. And all of those factors together kind of look to that being a stronger year going forward.
And Lindsay, what can UAW workers expect when it comes to profit sharing checks this year, given these results?
Profit sharing is tied to North American earnings. And so they're going to be about $10,500 or up to $10,500 this year. It's less than about $14,500 that they received last year. And it's a reflection of the fact that while they earned nearly $10.5 billion in North America for the year, it's less than last year. And tariffs obviously had an impact there. And so it's still a pretty significant bonus check. It's just not going to be as much as last year.
Perfect. Lindsay, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Cal.
You can read Lindsay Van Hully's reporting on GM and all of today's top stories at autonews.com. Coming up next, Ancor CEO Jose Flores discusses why data management is a critical and overlooked factor in the software-defined vehicle era. That's next on Daily Drive.
If you're an automotive supplier and you know your team is building the next big thing, prove it on the industry's biggest innovation stage. Automotive News is now accepting applications for the 2026 PACE program. PACE Awards recognize traditional and non-traditional suppliers worldwide for new product, process, and business model innovation, and entries must be innovations already commercialized through a sale to an automaker. Still pre-commercial but past the pilot stage? PACE Pilot recognizes post-pilot, pre-commercial innovations across automotive and future mobility, products, software, IT systems, and processes with the potential to revolutionize an automaker's business. All submissions are reviewed by an independent panel of judges, and MEMA is the exclusive lead sponsor. Ready to be recognized? Apply by February 9th at autonews.com.
When your AI tools are siloed, lost data, duplicate entries, and confusion are inevitable. Spark AI isn't another AI tool to manage. Instead, it's a unified AI data layer, changing the game by ensuring your solutions are making life easier and working at their highest capacity. Don't miss Spark at NADA. Watch Ray, our new AI assistant, bring everything together in one intuitive command center for smart, fast decision-making. Ray answers your questions at any time, providing instant messaging, insights, help videos, or live support. Instantly analyze your sales history and market trends, or generate a sales report with one prompt. You can even ask which cars to buy at auction today for the best return. Schedule an appointment at our booth for everything from a short demo to a full retail management system demonstration using our core AI products. Visit rayray.com/NADA. That's REYREY.com/NADA.
Welcome back to Daily Drive. I'm Kellen Walker. As automakers race toward software-defined vehicles, most focus on flashy sensors and autonomous technology. But Ancor CEO Jose Flores says they're missing the foundation, data management. Flores argues that without proper data collection and traceability, companies are bleeding profit, trust, and time. Our own Jake Neer spoke with Flores at CES about why he says data is king.
Jose Flores, welcome back to Daily Drive.
Excited to be here.
So the last time I talked to you, this was on Mackinac Island at the Mackinac Policy Conference. At the time, I know Ancor was really leaning into the EV battery passport technology at the time, and a lot has changed then. So I'm really excited to hear what the road has been like since then. So obviously with a lot of policy changes, back then you had a different administration really pushing for a lot of requirements for sustainability. Europe was doing a lot towards sustainability and tracking and things like that. Different kind of environment now, to say the least. So talk about that part of the business and sort of what the situation is there.
Yeah, I think as you mentioned, a lot of things have changed since 2 years ago. When we launched Batcore 2 years ago, there was no regulations. We were following the EU battery regulations and the CARB standards. I went 3-4 months ago to the battery conference in Detroit, and I had a panel interview. And the great news is that now there's a battery regulation in the U.S. If you ask me how does it compares, or for the audience, how does it compares to the EU battery regulations, I think we did it in a smarter way in the US. It's less, more simplistic, no calculations needed. It's just building the foundation for the next step, which is how do we get the compliance on the battery traceability.
So what's new with Ancor right now? What's been some of the things you're working on right now?
There has been a lot of great news at Ancor on our side. Last time we spoke, we were just automotive. Now we're a whole different group. We're not just one company. We're a group that has different divisions. We have our automotive division, which is the one that we built our foundation on for more than 50 years. And then we have our regulated industries division, which serves healthcare, retail, defense. The fun one, which I call my baby, is the innovation solutions group, which is the one that comes up to challenges and solutions that serve the customers. Our latest product, it's TraceCore. It's a asset tracking software that will let you track the supply chain and components in real time through smart connectivity labels. So we took our label, which was our main product, and data management to a whole new level, now with AI and chips, and it will give you that visibility and auditing for all the warehouses, and it's very impressive. So I'm very excited to be here and see how can I partner with a lot of tier ones and customers that will want this solution.
So talk about what the goal is here at CES. We've had conversations with analysts who have said, in the past, we've seen a lot of automakers and tier ones here that are kind of selling what they're doing, and now they're doing a lot more shopping. So I assume that you're trying to take advantage of that.
Yeah, of course. The CES in the last 3 years has changed and evolved a lot. For me, last year, it was mainly automotive. I was surprised to see a lot of EVs and startups. This year is a totally different 360 because you have the LiDAR suppliers and automotive and new EV startups and from all over the world, but also you have the AI side of the business, and you have everyone that is trying to build and contribute to the new mobility ecosystem. So for me, coming here is, okay, I'm looking for partners, or how can I put my contribution to this mobility, because at the end, the way I see it, Jake, is yes, CES tells you about the innovation, the vision, what's the goal. Everyone that is here is trying to contribute towards that next mobility phase, if you want to call it that way. But also, all of this mobility, you're seeing flying cars, you're seeing parts, you're seeing cars, recreational vehicles. All of these platforms have something in common that I think nobody's talking about, and that's the data intelligence operations, right? How do you connect all these components to the platform, which is the vehicle, right? The vehicle is the platform that is going to take you there. But if you don't manage the data properly from end to end, you don't have the traceability, the visibility, companies will keep bleeding profit, trust, and time. Right? Nobody thinks about the data. Only the people that we are into the data field, they don't think about it. But I think it's critically as an important, and I know it's, as long as companies don't stop seeing data as a backdoor compliance thing, I don't think they're going to be in the competition field.
That's really interesting to me. One of the things that I've heard too is that on the automotive side, for automakers or tier ones, to do this correctly, to get into the SDV era, that sort of thing, it's going to be really, really, and ADAS as well, it's going to be really important to choose your partners carefully. That you could lose a lot of money if you just try to, hire everybody and get like everyone's solutions, and then all of a sudden, it's kind of a mess and it's costly. So, what are you telling automakers as to why you should be part of that team?
I always start with the line that I like is, for me, data is king, right? You might have the fanciest LiDAR supplier that there is out there for your vehicle platform or your vehicles, but garbage in, garbage out, right? What are you doing with that data? Yes, the LiDAR will do its job, will tell you where things are, but are you making informed, smart decisions? Are you harvesting the data? And now with AI, it's even easier, because the challenge previously with data was who manages and makes the decisions with the data, like who makes the analytics on the data. You needed data analytics persons to do that. Nowadays, if you have a strong AI software, you can make those smart decisions with the data, but the data needs to be collected and managed from that point, right? So are you just using your components to a full point, or are you just using them as a informative type of goal?
That makes a lot of sense. And it's something that I think is key across so many different sectors. I got to ask you, you mentioned that Ancor is now a group within many different things. Any other, sides of any other businesses you're eyeing right now, or anything you want to get into in the future?
So we are getting into healthcare as well. It's the same. Data reigns all, right? So imagine this. You have a medical enclosure with medicines or components. Each component has an RFID label on it. That will give you the data to make informed decisions like, okay, how many quantities do I have? When do they expire? Who's checking those items or medical medicines in and out of the cabinet? And it's just faster and everything flows, because you're not sending a human to check, okay, do I have enough inventory in this medical cabinet? Do I need to order more? When are they expiring? No, right now with the technology that we have, if you leverage it properly, you can make very fast informed decisions. So we're in the healthcare field now, and right now we're also in the supply chain field with TraceCore, which is what I said on the warehouse. Through smart connectivity labels, you can audit assets on real time in seconds. You don't need to send someone to do head counts or counts of how many material do you have. With a click, you can see like, hey, you have 10,000 assets, you're missing 9, 10 of them are misplaced. They're not on the rack and shelf that it should be. And by the way, you have only 2 of this, so you might order more. And when you're in production, you know how important it is for you not to have downtime. Downtime is costing you a lot of money. So when a line breaks, you need to go and find that part and make sure that you have that part and go and replace it right away. So the amount of money that automakers are losing trying to find in a 10,000 or 100,000 critical component cage the parts, it's very impressive. So we saw that business case. We sold it for one of our partners, and now it's one of our flagship products.
So you're in different sectors, but you're really in the data efficiency business. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's a very nice assumption. Data operations intelligence. It's everything that is related to data that will give you the traceability to make the decisions.
I wanted to do a quick follow-up on actually my first question there, because I realized I should have followed up in the first place. I'm curious what you think in terms of, again, when it comes to EV batteries, which is what we talked a lot about last time. Is it easier now? Is it harder now in that business based on all we hear so much about the pullback on EVs and and that sort of thing. How's that affecting you guys?
I think it has been affecting us also as a country, because as you saw, the EV credits are being pulling back. People are being more resilient towards EVs. They're now we're following the hybrids route and everything. If you ask me, Jake, the need is out there. We do need the EV batteries. Yes, we have the tools that we need to do the digital twin for the batteries. And that will take the batteries decision to the next level, because you will be able to see on a digital twin what's the real life cycle of the battery. how many cycles left. I saw one supplier here that also does a battery management system like we do, and I think the need is there. Companies are struggling because we don't have the direction yet of, okay, are we following going all on board to the EV race or no? 2 years ago, yeah, we were as a country full EV race mindset. Now, if you read, well, you know, the automakers are pulling out of the EV race. Like there's OEMs that have pulled platforms that were very popular, and now they're going a different direction. So the need is out there. I don't think it's as urgent as it was 2 years ago.
And do you think that you're feeling optimistic about the long-term future, or are you a little less optimistic now?
I'm very optimistic. I do think that the EV platform is something we need. We don't need to rush into it. We need to go step by step. Same thing that we did with the regulations. We decided to lower down the regulations. Now we need to say, like, okay, if we want to go on the EV race, how long is it going to take? 5 years, 10 years? Okay, what do we need? Do we have the infrastructure? Because I always say, we don't even have the data and for the infrastructure to charge the vehicles. And now with the AI on it, like the power that we require to maintain AI plus the EV vehicles, that's going to be a very interesting question that someone needs to address. Like, how are we going to get all this energy from? It's not like we don't pull it out of the air, you know?
Right. Anything else that you want to say before we end off here?
No, I think it has been an very exciting show. I like to see the goal. CES is always the innovation, the show. I always tell my friends and my partners that for me, CES it shows you the shiny objects, right? But the real question is out there, like, do you have the software and the tools that run at 3 a.m. on the operations plan? Because that's the thing that is going to give you the real advantage. Not the shiny vehicle, but something that runs at 3 a.m. when no one is working. That's how you build the legacies.
Jose Flores, CEO of Ancor, thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course, Jake. Thanks for having me.
That's Daily Drive for today. I'm Kellen Walker. Thanks to automotive news journalists Lindsay Van Hully, Hans Greimel, and John Hutter for their reporting for today's podcast. You can get the latest news on tech and innovation, tariffs and trade, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoy the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.